Sector Dog Green, Omaha Beach. 6:29 a.m. The air inside the Higgins boat is not air. It is a suffocating hot cocktail of diesel fumes, salt spray, and the acidic stench of vomit from 30 men who have been battered by the waves for hours. There is no conversation. The only sound is the roar of the engine and the ocean slamming against the steel hull. Every man here knows the timeline. They know that in 60 seconds, the world ends. The coxswain guns the motor. The boat shudders, grounding on the sandbar. The heavy steel ramp drops with a deafening clang. The first soldier does not even have time to adjust his helmet. As he steps into the waist-deep water, he is taken instantly, a single shot tearing through him. He falls face-first into the surf, motionless. The water around the ramp turns a bright, shocking crimson. The man behind him steps forward and is cut down. Then the next. The German MG-42S in the bluffs above are not firing at random. They are painting the ramp with lead. There is no cover. There is no strategy in this second. There is only the raw, mechanical harvesting of life. The boat empties, not onto dry land, but into a kill zone. Bodies pile up in the shallows, rolling gently with the tide, weighed down by 80 pounds of wet gear. The invasion of Europe has begun. Part I, the machine and the weight. To understand the scale of this slaughter, you cannot look at the map. You must look at the sky 24 hours earlier. It is June 5th, the original date for the invasion. The English Channel is in revolt. Rain lashes the airfields in Britain. Gale force winds whip the coast. The most complex military operation in human history is being held hostage by the weather. In a trailer at Southwick House, General Dwight Eisenhower stares at the rain. The pressure is physical. 1.5 million American soldiers are packed into England, a coiled spring waiting to snap. If he waits for the next tidal window, the secret will leak. If he goes now, the fleet could be destroyed by the storm. At 4:15 a.m. on June 5th, a meteorologist predicts a brief, precarious break in the weather for the following morning. Eisenhower weighs the lives of thousands of men against the liberation of a continent. He barely whispers the command that sets the machinery in motion. Okay, we'll go. Part 2. The Night Drop. The clock strikes 0:15, June 6th. The silence of the Normandy night is torn apart. It is not the Navy yet. It is the sky. It vibrates. Over 2,000 Allied aircraft swarm across the coastline. Inside the C-47 transport planes, paratroopers from the US 101st and 82nd Airborne hook up their static lines. The red light glows. The turbulence is violent. Pilots are fighting to keep the formations level through thick cloud banks and exploding flak. The green light flashes. 23,000 men jump into the void. But the chaos begins immediately. The heavy cloud cover and intense anti-aircraft fire scatter the formations like confetti. Men land miles from their drop zones. They land in flooded fields, dragged under the black water by their heavy chutes. They land in the middle of German garrisons. General Maxwell Taylor of the 101st finds himself commanding a mix of privates from different units, officers without maps, and men without rifles. The meticulous plan dissolves instantly. It is replaced by a confused, desperate guerrilla war in the hedgerows. They fight in small, isolated bands, cutting phone lines, ambushing patrols, creating a chaotic noise that terrifies the German high command. The Germans believe they are being attacked from everywhere and nowhere. Part 3. The Horizon of Steel. 5 a.m. Dawn breaks over the Atlantic Wall. Inside the concrete bunkers of the wider Standsnest, the German resistance nests, the sentries look out to sea. For years, they have stared at an empty grey ocean. Today, the ocean is gone. In its place is a city of steel. 6,939 vessels. Battleships, destroyers, cruisers, and thousands of landing craft stretch from the horizon to the shore. It is a sight that defies logic. The sheer industrial might of the Allies has materialized out of the mist. At 5:30, the horizon ignites. The naval bombardment begins. 4-inch shells from battleships like the USS Texas scream overhead, sounding like freight trains tearing through the sky. They slam into the French coast, throwing up geysers of earth and concrete. The ground shakes violently under the boots of the German defenders. It feels like the apocalypse. But in the sector marked Omaha, a fatal error is happening in the clouds above. The heavy bombers B-17S and B-24S approach Omaha Beach to pulverize the defenses before the troops land, but the cloud cover is solid. The pilots are terrified of dropping their payloads short and hitting the landing craft approaching the shore. They make a split-second decision. They delay the drop by a few seconds. It is a tragedy of mathematics. Those few seconds cause the bombs to sail over the beach defenses. They explode harmlessly in the cow pastures inland. The smoke rises, deceiving the commanders at sea. They believe the beach defenses are crushed. They are wrong. The bunkers are intact. The phone lines are working. And the veteran soldiers of the German 352nd Infantry Division, tough Eastern Front experienced troops that Allied intelligence missed dust off their uniforms, load their weapons, and wait. Part IV, the 5 beaches. Utah Beach, the Fortunate Drift, 6:30 a.m. H hour. At Utah Beach, the westernmost flank, the current is strong. It drags the landing craft nearly 2 kilometers south of their intended target. It is a navigational disaster that becomes a miracle. The troops, led by Brigadier General Theodore Roosevelt Jr., the oldest man in the invasion, walking with a cane land in a sector that is lightly defended. The massive fortifications are further north. Roosevelt realizes the error immediately. He stands on the sand, bullets snapping the air occasionally, and makes the call. We'll start the war from right here. The 4th Infantry Division surges inland. The tanks arrive. The engineers blow the seawall. By noon, the beach is secure. The casualty count is miraculously low, 197 dead out of 23,000 men. It is a textbook assault, aided by chance. Omaha Beach, the killing jar. But 10 miles to the east, at Omaha, there is no miracle. There is only a meat grinder. The geography is a trap. The beach ends in a steep shingle bank, followed by impassable bluffs. The Germans are positioned in a crescent, creating a perfect crossfire. As the ramps drop, the 1st and 29th Divisions are decimated. Entire companies effectively cease to exist in minutes. Men jump off the sides of the boats to avoid the fire, only to drown, pulled down by their equipment. Those who make it to the sand hide behind the Czech hedgehogs, the steel obstacles meant to rip the boats apart. They are pinned down. The tide is rising, threatening to drown the wounded who are screaming for medics that are already dead. Commanders on the destroyers offshore watch through binoculars in horror. They consider abandoning the beach. It looks like a defeat, but slowly, imperceptibly, the paralysis breaks. Not by grand strategy, but by the raw courage of individuals. A lieutenant stands up and yells, "Two kinds of people are staying on this beach, the dead and those who are going to die. Now let's get the hell out of here." Small groups of men, leaderless, wet, and terrified, begin to crawl. They crawl over the bodies of their friends. They crawl up the bluffs, silencing one machine gun nest at a time with grenades and bayonets. By sheer force of will, they crack the German line. But the cost is staggering. 2,400 casualties. The sand is no longer beige. It is a dark, soaked mud of oil and blood. Gold, Juno, Sword, the British and Canadian sector. 7:25 a.m. The tide is different here. The British and Canadians land almost an hour later than the Americans to accommodate the water levels. But the rising tide is faster than expected. It hides the mines and obstacles under a layer of choppy water. At Gold Beach, the British 50th Division hits the sand. They have something the Americans at Omaha did not: Hobart's funnies. These are modified tanks, some with spinning chains to detonate mines, others that lay down bridges. These steel beasts crush the barbed wire and blast open the exits. The British push hard, driving inland towards Bayeux. At Juno, The Canadians face a ferocious defense. The first wave takes heavy losses, a 50% casualty rate in the leading assault teams. The landing craft strike submerged mines, exploding before they even reach the shore. But the Canadians are relentless. They storm the seawall and engage in brutal house-to-house fighting in the seaside towns. By the end of the day, they will have advanced further inland than any other Allied force. At Sword, the British 3rd Infantry Division rushes ashore with bagpipes playing. Their objective is critical: link up with the airborne troops holding the bridges and take the city of Caen. They face the 21st Panzer Division, the only German armoured counterattack of the day. For a moment, the invasion teeters. Panzers drive a wedge to the sea. But the British anti-tank guns and the sheer volume of Allied air power hold the line. The German tanks retreat. The beachhead holds. Part V. The Reckoning. As the sun begins to set on June 6th, the noise of battle changes. The continuous roar of artillery fragments into sporadic gunfire in the distance. The beaches are no longer battlefields. They are colossal, chaotic ports. The sand is littered with the detritus of war. Burning tanks, twisted steel, thousands of discarded rifles, and long, neat rows of bodies covered in ponchos. The medics move like ghosts among the living and the dead. In Berlin, the High Command is still paralyzed, debating if this is the real invasion or a diversion. But, on the cliffs of Normandy, the truth is undeniable. The Atlantic Wall, the fortress Hitler claimed would last 1,000 years, has been breached in less than 12 hours. But the ledger of this day is written in blood. The old estimates were guesses, rounded numbers for history books. The reality is sharper. We now know that 4,414 Allied soldiers died on this single day. 2,501 Americans, 1,449 British, 391 Canadians, 73 others. These are not statistics. These were sons, fathers, and brothers who never saw the sunset. On the German side, the confusion is total. Estimates range between 4,000 and 9,000 casualties. They fought from concrete bunkers, they had the high ground, but they were overwhelmed by a tide of steel and flesh they could not stop. Night falls over Normandy. The sky is lit by the glow of burning trucks and the traces of anti-aircraft fire chasing Luftwaffe planes in the dark. The soldiers dig foxholes in the French soil. They are exhausted, wet, and traumatized. They have survived the longest day, but as they look into the dark hedgerows ahead, they know the war is not over. The beach was just the door. Now they have to enter the house.